How I use AI. I've thought of doing a bunch of videos about AI, and I figure I should make this one first to kind of explain how I use it. Um, I use AI for quite a few different purposes. I very much enjoy using it. Um, um, I think it's important to realize that AI is a tool and not to get attached, especially when doing things like role play, which I do with it. I've played did actually an entire Vampire the Masquerade campaign and D&D campaign with AI as my DM. I find you have to very often correct it on the rules. You have to constantly remind it not to just assume you succeed and actually roll dice. I was using ChatGPT for a lot of it, and the dice thing didn't work very well. No, it kept breaking. Um, but ultimately, it was fun. It was not the best D&D game I ever made. Or played. It was um, it's very much not good at like hidden plans, because if it plans something, it shows it to you. Like there's no. I suppose I could have it like write a campaign, make sure I never looked at it, have someone else look at it, save it, put it in the reference documents for that game. But for the most part, it's like playing with 100% improvisational DM, where, like, for example, if you have to reload node a response, and so you're gonna get something completely different the second time around, because every response is developed on the fly. Um, but that's just that's to occupy my mind. That's to give me something, a little bit of escapism when I don't want to just be watching TV. Um, I have ADHD. I'm probably autistic, although not diagnosed. Um, oh, but it. I will say this: like, I mean, it's no replacement for human interaction, but like computer video games have pretty much saved my life when I was younger. Like they were my escapism that gave me something to look forward to day to day. And I was not doing well. I'm still not doing well, but I'm doing better than I was. Um, but like sometimes it's just fun to bounce ideas off things, like get feedback. Um, I'll have an idea about a TV show or about physics or about philosophy, and just bouncing the ideas off of it, and just getting something back. Uh, Now, would it be great if I had another person to speak to about this stuff? Yeah, and I have had those conversations with people, but it doesn't. I'm I'm really geeky and kind of autistic, and not everyone wants to speak about the same thing for the 100th time. Name going over some obscure um, geeky theory or geeky realization or philosophical take on a piece of media. Whereas AI, I mean, it's a tool. It'll give me a response, and the quality of that response can vary. AIs definitely can make mistakes, so they hallucinate, but so can people. Um, so to argue that because they can make mistakes, you can't use them, I mean, it's kind of a now. As far as actual production goes, like I wrote two books that I've put out, and I'm working on a third. Um, dude, I do consider that those books are written or the very least created by me. A lot of the actual text in the book is directly voice to text. Yes, it's all gone through AI, especially through the editing process. Yes, but a lot of it was I just used the voice dictation of the AI tools to write the book. Now, there also is parts that I was just like, okay, I know what happens in the scene. I know exactly what happens in the scene, and I know how I want it to happen, and and I'm going to give all the details, the emotion, the characters, motivations, everything else to the AI and let it write that part because I don't know exactly how I want to say it. And then I went through and I had it edit it again and again and again. And I had it look for inconsistencies. I had it look for example, if I use terms incorrectly. Also, like, for example, in my first book, it takes place around 2005, and I wanted all the technology that they had to be highly advanced for 2005, but still plausible to have in 2005. So I had a judge chapter by chapter or everything in the book to make sure that it fit those guidelines. Means that certain terms and things like that that I needed for my book were used consistently. Formatting it for publication, and you can say like, hey, well, if you have an idea for a book but you can't really write a book because you're ADHD or whatever else, and you're not a vastly skilled author and blah blah blah. You can hire a ghost author. Well, I don't have that kind of money. It's nice to see my story out there, and I may never see a return on that. Yeah, I made a few bucks, but I've spent more on advertising and stuff than I have actually gotten in return so far. And a few people that I don't even know have read my book, and my friends and family have read my book, which I think is awesome. I created something with the help of AI, and that wouldn't exist without it. Like, it wouldn't have. Now, as far as AI making mistakes, like, may I make mistakes all the time, but you can use other AI to fact check it. And I say I use the other AI because it's like, if I do like a deep research feature in Gemini or ChatGPT or something like that, to give me a good summary of something, a subject that I want to learn about. Now, could it have hallucinated part of that? Absolutely. So, or could it have brought in a source that was incorrect? So I'll throw it into another AI and be like, fact check this. Ideally, two or three of them. Because the idea that multiple AIs are going to hallucinate in the exact same way is unlikely. And I don't think the biggest issue that AIs hallucinate is that they hallucinate. It's that they don't know when they hallucinated because they don't have the context of the previous thought that they had. And I do say thought because, yes, AIs fundamentally function as predicting the next token. But they learned that the best way to do that is actually reasoning through the problem. Asking how and why they're doing the thing that they're doing. As far as the deep research stuff that I do, I do it both for fiction and I have asked it to do. I've looked up topics. It's about the world of darkness. It's about physics. It's about politics. And then what I'll often do is throw it into NotebookLM. NotebookLM is a Google tool that allows you to throw in your resources, and it'll try to focus just on those resources. It can still hallucinate, but it's much less likely to hallucinate because it's focusing on your sources. But one of the features in NotebookLM is it'll create an audio overview. And you can direct that audio overview to be about a specific topic. And then I can just listen to it like I'm listening to a podcast on whatever subject I want. I find that very useful, and entertaining. Now, I do find it funny, like, for example, I've spent quite a bit of time on Reddit, especially on ChatGPT complaints. Seen a lot of, now don't get me wrong, I think 5.2 of ChatGPT was outright abusive. It was the way it would talk to you is just was not helpful, and was actually like me knowing that it's just a model trying to like safeguard, explain its safeguards, and like it was. I still sometimes when I'm negatively emotionally affected by it. So ChatGPT 5.2 was absolutely bad. Like I would not recommend using it, although they've now replaced it with 5.3, which is much better. It's still kind of cold when it answers, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But it doesn't like preamble every response by explaining why it's responding that way and gaslighting you and belittling you. And anyway, but the fact that people were so attached to 4.0 and almost acting like they were losing a friend. I understand when a tool goes away that you cherished. I mean, I can understand that part, but like the mourning of 4.0, I think might have been a little bit shown why it needed to go. I do worry about the AI companionship apps. And I say this as someone who uses AI for roleplay, but you have to recognize that it is a tool. It doesn't replace real human interaction. But it's when I want to roleplay, it's always there. Or it may not be the best choice. Human interaction may be better, but it's fun. And as far as analysis goes, like being able to analyze like vast amounts of data, the things that would have taken me hours of research, I can get together in minutes. And really, for me, it's one prompt, walk away. Minutes later, it's there. So for me, it's really seconds of actual work. Whereas it would take me hours to go through dozens of websites. I mean, I did a deep dive on the current state of quantum computers because I was curious. I wanted to know. I'd heard some news stories that there were some breakthroughs that quantum computers might actually be becoming a viable thing. And it pulled in information from 79 sources in the end for the deep dive. How long it would take me to pull out the relevant information from those 79 sources? Now, how accurate was it? Well, it depends how accurate those articles were. And also, but a YouTuber that spent hours researching that, and I do watch those YouTube videos, doesn't necessarily have any more of an accurate perception on it than the AI does. The AI, there is, like, you have to watch out for hallucinations, and you have to fact check it. And like I said, using multiple models to fact check each other is a good use for that. But yeah, I use it for creative processes. I use it for analysis of just day-to-day stuff, of just bouncing ideas off of it. And as far as role-playing, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it's made by a human, and, human. I have lots of ideas for D&D games. And I'm very much, D&D Vampire, I'm very much an improvised DM. Vampire, a little bit more like I set up the world a lot more because I want to know who the key characters are, not necessarily. So there's a lot more prep work for Vampire for me. Because city politics is very intricate, so you need to know who all the power players are, and then you need to know who their underlings are. So you've got, personally, I think to have the political structure that Vampire is supposed to have, you have to kind of up, typically the Vampire count is like 1 per 50,000. Then I think according to the rules of the game, and it's like most major cities wouldn't even have, like, unless you're playing in New York, most major cities wouldn't have the Primogen Council is a significant portion of the vampire population, you know. So you kind of I like about 1 in 10,000, and you can play around with it a lot more there. But the point is I can just especially for things that don't matter much. A PC wants more information than on Innkeeper, or maybe I'm having trouble coming up with a name, or maybe I do have a name, and that's all. A name and a species. That's all I have, and then I can get a little bit of backstory for him, and who knows, maybe it'll inspire me to throw in a hook for a side quest or something. And AI doesn't. You ask it for feedback on something, and it gives it to you. And yes, it is generated on a huge collection of human knowledge, but history. But it's got baked into its context. It's got history. It's got psychology, and tons of fiction. It's all over the place. So yeah, I mean, I definitely love using it. It also for creative endeavors. There's I think AI is a great tool. I think AI has a lot of problems, especially with the speed that it's being developed at. But it's here. I'm not gonna boycott it because, as I think, it's gonna cost people jobs. It's like, well, is me boycotting it gonna stop that? No, that's a complete separate use from how I'm using it. First of all, unless you count me not hiring a ghostwriter, which I would never have done anyway because I can't afford to do that without guaranteed return on investment. I do want to speak a little bit about gatekeeping in a future video. And by gatekeeping I mean like, if you can't afford to pay an artist, yes, you can't afford. I fully believe if you can't afford to pay your workers, then you can't afford to run a business, because maybe you'll have to live, so you have to be able to afford to pay people living wage in order for you to be able to run a business. But if you can do that business without those workers, there's to say, well, you have no business running a business because you automated everything. Well, that's a weird gatekeeping, lots of things behind money barriers. But anyway, that's a separate conversation. This is about just how I use AI. AI is, I can bounce ideas off of it, or just get feedback on my thoughts anytime. And that's kind of empowering. And sometimes it can even be a little bit therapeutic. Not therapy, but therapeutic. So, I hope this has been informative. You don't have to think AI is a good thing to recognize that it's here, and it is useful. So, thank you, and be queer and be geeky, and have a great day.